Hello and welcome back for my third video where we are going to look at a scientific trailblazer and all-round badass, James Derham. James Derham is the first known black man to formally practice medicine in North America, although he did so without an MD, which isn't really important to the story as we'll discuss later. However, what is important is that he is not this man. You might think, why is that important? Why would you show me a picture of a completely different person to the one that we're talking about? Well, the answer's simple. While researching James Derham, this man's image pops up a lot. A lot. In YouTube videos, articles, blogs, all over the place. To the point that I thought it was James Derham, until I realised that James Derham disappears from history in 1802. And this, ladies and gentlemen, I think is a photo. I think it's a photo that's been retouched, but I think it's a photo. Whether it is or not is really not the point. I decided it was a photo. And this is the earliest known photo from 1826 or 1827. It's not the best, is it? It's supposed to be of a streetscape, but I'll take their word for it. Whether it is a photo or not, beside the point. It was my first clue. However, it really shouldn't have been. This should have been. Yeah, I know. This photo is of another scientific badass and coincidentally, another James. This is James McCoon Smith, who was the first African American to practice medicine in North America with a degree, which he received from Glasgow University in 1837. Go on the Glasgow. I'm not pointing this out, and I want to be clear on this. I'm not pointing it out to make fun of the other videos and writers, because I very nearly made the same mistake. I'm merely pointing it out in the hopes of saving someone else some time. Because you see, there's plenty of articles and plenty of videos out there that don't use this photo. So clearly, those people know. And if those people had mentioned it at the beginning of their video, it would have saved me a horrendous amount of time and a lot of social embarrassment. And I really would have appreciated someone mentioning the fact that this is not James Derham. The fact is, there are no known pictures of James Derham. This image here has been proposed to be him and his first master, but there really is no way of knowing. In summary, this photo, not James Derham. Another James, yes. Another doctor, yes. Another badass from history, yes. But not the badass we're talking about. Let's move on. So James Derham was born into slavery sometime around 1762 in Philadelphia, although his exact date of birth is unknown. His name probably came from his first owner, although there is no record of who that might have been or even who his parents were. It is also unknown when and where he learned to read and write, only that he did, and when and where he learned to speak Spanish and French, only that he could. The earliest we know of him is when he was sold to Dr. John Kersley, Jr. in 1773. And this is where the story begins. Dr. Kersley was a medical doctor specializing in sore throats, and James Derham worked as his assistant. Kersley taught him the basics of medicine, how to mix medicines, simple medical procedures, and allowed him to assist with his patients. Although another thing of note is that Dr. John Kersley was born in Durham, England, which has the same pronunciation as James Derham's name, although there is some dispute as to how he spelt it, D-U-R-H-A-M or D-E-R-H-A-M. It was just an interesting note. Is this where his name originates from, or is it just simply a coincidence? It's all conjecture, of course, but it's a fact I found fascinating when I discovered it, and I just wanted to include it. Let's continue. Working with Kersley changed the course of Derham's life and set him on the road for greatness. Later in life, Derham himself would specialise in sore throats, just like his old mentor. So it's undoubtable the effect that Kersley had on him. When Derham was 15, he ended up working for another British doctor, Dr. George West, a surgeon in the 16th British Regiment during the American Revolution. As with Kersley, Derham worked as his assistant and continued to solidify his medical knowledge. At the end of the war, he was again sold to another doctor, this time Dr. Robert Dow. With Dow, he would complete his medical training, and after several years in his service, sometime in the 1780s, Dr. Dow allowed Derham to purchase his freedom, which allowed him to set up his own practice in New Orleans. Now, at the time in America, medicine was a trade. There was, of course, some medical doctors, mostly from Britain, who had graduated from medical school, but the majority of practicing doctors had done an apprenticeship. The first medical school in North America, the Medical College of Philadelphia, had only been founded in 1764, and initially medical schools were only used to support the apprenticeship system. It wouldn't be till the mid-19th century that medical school would become the predominant method of training. So for all intensive purposes, by the standards of the time, James Derham was a fully qualified physician, and he was regarded as such by many of his peers, most notably Benjamin Rush. Who's Benjamin Rush? All you non-Americans may ask. Well, Benjamin Rush is one of the signatories on the Declaration of Independence. A civic leader in Philadelphia, a doctor, politician, humanitarian, and the main reason we know anything about James Derham today. On November 14th, 1788, Rush wrote a letter to the Pennsylvania Society for promoting the abolition of slavery. The topic of this letter? Derham. Derham, who was in Philadelphia for the first time since he was sold there as a slave, had recently met Benjamin Rush, although how and where we don't know today. The letter detailed his life story, how he became a doctor, his practice in New Orleans, but most telling was his abilities as a doctor, which were described as follows. There is now in the city a black man by the name of James Derham, a practitioner of physic, belonging to the Spanish settlement of New Orleans on the Mississippi. I have conversed with him upon the most acute of endemic diseases of the country where he lives, and was pleased to find him perfectly acquainted with the modern simple mode of practice in these diseases. I expected to have suggested some new medicines to him, but he suggested many more to me. After this initial meeting, Derham and Rush continued to correspond with each other. In total, there are 9 letters to Rush, which survive to this day. With Derham's first letter to him, he included gifts requested for medicines, a request he would continue and repeat in further letters. And he included a paper which he had written, The Putrid Sore Throat of New Orleans. Appetizing. But Rush dutifully read this letter to the College of Physicians of Philadelphia. Apparently, though, it was not well received, because Derham's follow-up letter to him stated his disappointment that the treatment not being correspond. In other words, he was sad that the other physicians didn't like his paper. Derham's handwriting in these letters is always neat, but his grammar and punctuation, capitalization are generally very inconsistent. His spelling appears to be terrible by modern eyes, but his letters predate readily available dictionaries. Webster didn't publish the first American one till 1825, and phonetically all the words he writes are spelt correctly. Rather than go into each letter in detail, which could be rather boring. I'll go through briefly what each of them contained. His third letter, he requested a list of medicines, including jalap, rhubarb, putrefied nitre, spirits of lavender, gobble salt, caramel, and spirit of wine. He also, interestingly enough, boldly and really bravely, complains that I have wrote to you at different times for some medicines, and I have never had an answer from you. Imagine that. A signatory on the Declaration of Independence, and this man's bold enough to complain at him. Told you he was a badass. The next letter, dated October 18th, with no year, although it was probably 1794, he asked about the treatment of yellow fever, and stated that it had been prevalent among the English settlers and that the French had started to get it. He said he had treated it no less than 50 patients and that he had lost only 6, and a point that he seemed quite proud of. On March 1st, 1794, he complained again about not having any responses and also requested more medicine. After that, there are no letters for the next 5 years. The next letter, dated February 16th, 1800, spoke of another outbreak of yellow fever and that he had treated 64 patients, this time losing 11. The next letter, May 20th, 1800, was a letter of introduction from Dr. Dow. We can assume Dr. Dow handed it to him himself, as the letter reads, "I take this opportunity of writing and at the same time introduce my old master and friend, Dr. Dow, and beg you will take care of him, for he has been very kind to me in all occasions, and he wanted to be introduced to you." He also requested more medicines. A letter dated February 10th, 1801, thanked Dr. Rush for pamphlets he had sent, and asked him to advise on a patient who had a stomach complaint for the past 14 years. April 5th, 1802, he requested a pamphlet on the pox, as there was a strange one in New Orleans at the time. No letters survive after that date, and thus James Derham fades from history. At the time, New Orleans was under Spanish control, and they kept detailed records of the city and were very meticulous about the examinations and licensing of physicians. Sometime before 1801, Derham, or Durham, D-E-R-U-M, a free black, was relegated to having the right only to cure throat disease and no other. In his penultimate letter to Rush, Derham himself had made reference to wanting to leave New Orleans and come back to America, perhaps because his license had been so revoked. Whether or not he left, we may never know. In 1803, the Louisiana Purchase happened, and the meticulous Spanish records stopped. And without them, and with no further letters to Rush, James Derham, the pioneer, the trailblazer, the man with the indomitable spirit in the face of adversity, born a slave to become a hero, just ceases to be. The sad reality is that this great man may never have been known to history if it hadn't been for his association and long-term friendship with Rush. And it begs the question, what other great men has time forgotten? Is Derham really the first black doctor to practice in America at all? Were there others before him and history simply didn't take note? It's a question we may never have the answer to. But thankfully for us, records of him do survive and offer us a brief but fascinating look at what was no doubt an extraordinary life. Hey, how's it going? And welcome to the end of my video. If you've made it this far, thank you. I do appreciate it. First thing to note, if you're new here, I saved this bit of the video just to talk about my own opinions or, just chew the fat, which is start a conversation. The first thing I want to discuss is that, yes, the audio sounds considerably different right now because I recorded the story of James Derham last week on my old headset, which was only recording for one ear. It wasn't recording for the other ear. It was only recording for one speaker, basically. So I have a new headset that is wildly better, considerably better than my old headset. So the audio is going to improve on future videos, thankfully. And yeah, I really hope you enjoyed this video. I'm basically doing this channel just to have a bit of fun and to learn a new skill. And I really like YouTube, so I thought I would join the conversation. So I've never really, I mean, I have edited before, but I've never edited anything like this video in particular. I learned a lot, so this actually took me an enormous amount of time to do. The audio's been done for a week, and I thought I would have the video finished on Tuesday. And it's now Sunday night, and I'm just getting around to my Jerry Springer style final thoughts. Yeah, so if you have any comments or opinions, or if you like this style of video, if you want me to do more like this or more like my other ones, please leave a comment down below. And yeah, I'll speak to you soon. Thanks for listening.